Well, I didn't think I'd have to make a video about this ever. I didn't think that this would be a thing that would be happening right now. If you asked me a month ago that things would go the way they are going, I'd call you crazy. I wouldn't believe it. And this whole thing about Pierre Luc Dubois and the Montreal Canadiens, it has me hot. It has a lot of people upset. And I just can't believe that it's gone the way that it's gone. So for people that have been living under a rock for the last maybe 2-3 weeks, Pierre Luc Dubois wants to be a Montreal Canadian. So that's fine. No issue with that whatsoever. It does suck because Pierre Luc Dubois is a very important player to the Jets right now, and that is a player who they traded Patrick Laine for. Arguably the biggest trade in Jets history, probably the biggest one in 2.0. You can argue away with the 1.0, but definitely the biggest trade since the Jets have returned here in 2011. So when you see that this guy is trying to push himself out of Winnipeg that hard, I just can't believe it, because this was supposed to be the fix. This was supposed to be the guy that would come in with Scheifele, be the 1A, 1B, the center tandem. You know, you need two big-time centers to win cups. All those legendary Stanley Cup teams, they've had those two big centermen. He was supposed to be that guy, and not even 2 years after the Patrick Laine trade, we're sitting here talking about Pierre Luc Dubois trying to force himself out of Winnipeg and into Montreal. For those of you that didn't hear about what happened at the draft, it's been confirmed that Pierre Luc Dubois was at the draft with his family, 100% expecting to be traded to the Montreal Canadiens in Montreal. So Montreal was trying to make a big thing about it, and they would walk him out on stage, probably wearing the jersey. Everybody'd be like, oh my God, he's here. Oh my God. So they were really trying to push this trade, and I guess it just didn't end up working, and they didn't meet the Jets' ask. Who knows what that is right now? It does appear that they want a pretty substantial return, as they should, for a guy with the pedigree of Pierre Luc Dubois and how good he is and the potential that he has. It makes sense that Winnipeg wants a lot for him. But anyway, trade didn't work out, and Pierre, his agent, were apparently pissed. I'm sure they were. And then his agent goes on to Montreal talk show, I guess it was, and he says Montreal is a place and a city that he'd like to play in. That's all I can say for now. And that's super weird for an agent to do, because you never see that. And you can yell tampering and whatever. It is greasy, but it's technically not tampering, because he's an RFA. He didn't sign his qualifying offer. So the Jets do own Pierre Luc Dubois, but they don't have him signed to a contract. So it's not tampering, but it's close. It's teetering. It's a little bit scummy, I'm not going to lie, because now this puts the Jets in a place where they don't have a ton of leverage, even with owning Pierre Luc Dubois. But essentially they own him for at least 2 more years. So we'll see what comes out of that. But the Jets right now are backed into a bit of a corner. But now Dubois declined the player option for arbitration, but then the Jets also declined the team arbitration option. So he's sitting without a contract. He can still accept his qualifying offer if he plans to play hockey this fall and into the rest of the year. However, this does leave the door open for a potential offer sheet. I don't think anybody except Montreal would offer sheet Dubois right now, because they probably get denied, because Dubois has to sign off on an offer sheet. That's how the offer sheet works. But the one team it does make sense for is Montreal, because that's where he wants to play. He will be signing off on it, of course, and then it would just be up to the Jets if they wanted to match it or not. So it would be a 1, a 2, and a 3, like first round pick, second round pick, third round pick from Montreal to Winnipeg. But I don't know if Winnipeg takes that. I know they would likely be higher picks, and it is intriguing for sure, but I think they want more substance to come back in a Dubois trade, and I think they can get more. The reason the whole deal fell apart at the draft is the Jets were asking for a guy from Montreal that they were unwilling to part with. Lots of people think that is Nick Suzuki. Nick Suzuki's a good player, and I do think that he would be an okay add. However, that contract is kind of ugly, I'm not going to lie. 8 years for $7.9 million. Like, sure, he's a very good player, and he's shown that in Montreal at a young age already, but I don't know how high that ceiling is. However, I do see the Jets trying to add a guy that can be their second-line center. Maybe he becomes a 1B in the future, but you're really betting on the future, and you don't want to sell yourself short in this trade. It just can't be for a bunch of guys like Christian Dvorak, Josh Anderson. Those are great pieces, but they are nowhere near as valuable as PLD. So there are many ways and many different avenues that this could go right now with Dubois, with the Jets, and with the Canadiens. My personal take on this is that I do think they will move him before training camp. I wouldn't be shocked if they did, but it wouldn't surprise me as if they tried to tough this out. Maybe he takes a qualifying offer for a year. It would be like 1 year, $6 million. Play out the year or up to the trade deadline, and then move him when his value is worth maybe a little bit more. Maybe there's a little bit more of a bidding war on him. But the one thing that is holding a lot of teams back right now from making a move for a guy that wants out of Winnipeg is that they know that he wants to go to Montreal, and that in 2 years he will be going there because he just won't sign a long-term contract. But add this to the list of terrible things to happen this offseason. So you've got the Dubois situation. You've got Wheeler and the Jets struggling to move that contract. And then you've got not getting Barry Trotz. You've got the quiet free agency so far anyway. We're about 5 or 6 days deep into that, but super disappointing. You've got them sitting on trade assets like Brendan Dillon. I just can't believe it. I know there's a ton of offseason to go here, and a lot of stuff will happen. But wow, this offseason has been terrible, and it is exhausting. I just can't believe the situation with Dubois. I didn't anticipate this at all, and with the way that he's just trying to muscle his way through to Montreal is just so crazy. I thought this guy would be wearing the C once Wheeler was gone, or at the very least have a letter. He was such a good team guy last year, and maybe the room just changed his view, or maybe it was always like this. Maybe this was always the grand plan for Pierre Luc Dubois, but I just can't believe that it's unfolding the way that it is, and just how public they're going with everything, with the agent saying that, yeah, he wants to play in Montreal, with Dubois pretty much telling the Jets to their face, no, I'm not signing long-term. I'm going to go to UFA, and I'm going to sign with the Montreal Canadiens. So, just mind-boggling. If you told me, again, as I said earlier, told me this a month ago, I would have laughed in your face. I would have said that's not happening. Even that first time when Elliot Friedman had said that it doesn't look like he'll be a Jet long-term, I really was like, I don't know. Maybe, I think it's just because of the locker room thing. Once that gets fixed, maybe he'll have a change of heart. But I did not see it going this direction at all. So this video is a bit of a mess, and I apologize for that. And I apologize that I didn't talk about free agency, do a free agency recap or anything like that. But to be honest with you guys, there's been pretty much nothing to recap. We signed a borderline fourth liner, some dude out of the NCAA that played in the AHL last year that looks promising, and a bunch of depth left defensemen that are going to be playing with the Moose. I don't get it. I don't get what we're doing right now. We say we want to win, but we're not doing the things that we need to put a competitive product on the ice. I just can't imagine a world where the fans here in Winnipeg, myself included, can get behind a team that is going to have Mark Scheifele, who famously was super lazy last year and an awful leader and whatever else you want to say about Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, who's just not a very good captain, and publicly known, wants out, and the Jets want to move him. And then you're gonna go over to Pierre Luc Dubois, who has told you, hey, I'm not gonna re-sign with you in 2 years. I'm going to Montreal, and then not trade him. And then he goes public, pretty much tells Montreal, hey, I don't want to play here anymore. I want to muscle my way to you, and I want to be a Hab ASAP. And you're going to bring back all 3 of those players. Scheifele, I get, fine. If he buys in, becomes the leader that we all thought that he could be, fine. I don't care. But with Wheeler, you need to shed that cap. It's long past overdue that the Jets move on from Blake Wheeler. Get a new voice in there. Take the C off of Blake Wheeler. He's not a good captain. He never really was, to be completely honest. I think it's hurt him more than anything. It's put more of a spotlight on Blake Wheeler, and I think it's time the Jets move on, and I do think that does happen. But if it doesn't, and they bring back that problem, if they bring in this new problem with Pierre Luc Dubois, and then just everything with Scheifele last year, just all this weird stuff, if they bring all of that back into the locker room, Rick Bowness is going to have quite the job trying to reunite this just, I don't even know what to call it, just this mess of a locker room, mess of a team. And right now, it really seems like a mess of an organization unless they start making some moves here, because they say they want to compete. But honestly, with this roster, the way it is right now, I don't think you even sniff the playoffs. And getting back to the Dubois thing here, it just sucks, because in the grand scheme of things, Patrik Laine should have been a Jet for most of his career. He was supposed to be that guy, the cornerstone guy. There's so many good memories attached to Patrik Laine. I loved Patrik Laine so much, and I'm not the only one in Winnipeg that loved him. He was just so fun to watch. A 44-goal scorer in his second year in the NHL. He scored 36 in his first year. And then we moved him because of some coaching issues, and we pretty much picked Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele in that weird room over Patrik Laine when it should have been the other way around. And now look where the Jets are now. And look where Patrik Laine is now. Patrik Laine in a great situation over there in Columbus if he decides that he wants to be there long term. I'm sure he will be. I'm sure he'll be there with Johnny Gaudreau, scoring 30, 40, 50, 60 goals for the next few years. And it's just so irritating that all we're left with from that trade was Pierre Luc Dubois, who not even 2 years into this wants out and wants to go to Montreal, and we're probably going to get a pretty underwhelming package back for him. So I'm pissed. I hate how this has gone. I don't like being completely super negative all the time, and I feel like that's a lot of what I've just been talking about lately. Just everything seems to be negative about the Winnipeg Jets as of late, and really just this whole past 6 months. There's really nothing good to talk about right now. As dark and as sad as that sounds, there is nothing good to talk about right now, and I really hope that it changes, because I don't know how it can get worse than what it is right now. I don't know how this team expects itself to be competitive if they just stand pat and say, oh, we're going to run it back, because this is not a good team right now. They're not in a position to win. Stuff needs to change, and it might start with Pierre Luc Dubois moving to the Canadiens and avoiding, or anywhere really, and avoiding a weird training camp. So I'm going to leave it there. This video's been awful. This has just been a mess, but I really needed just to talk out everything here and just talk about how frustrated I am with the Jets. I want them to go out there and be competitive, or just tear the team down. Let's start rebuilding this so that we can be truly competitive, a really good team with all of these great draft picks and these great prospects that you already have in the system. add a few more. Let's build this team up, and in the next few years, we can really start making a push for it. I don't want them to do what they're doing right now and go and sink themselves into mediocrity and just be toting the line, borderline bubble playoff team, or, between that and 10 points out in the playoffs. As a fan, this is frustrating, and it bothers me because it's just like we're just sitting there. We're not doing anything. And I'm sure we are trying to do something. I'm sure we are trying to make moves. But unfortunately, we're just don't seem to be doing the right thing ever. And it's so frustrating. But with all that said, there is still 2.5 months left until things really get going, so there is a long sheet of off-season left to go here. I'm really hoping that Chevy and the Jets can just put their heads down, maybe bring in some players that'll help them win now, because they want to do that super bad instead of doing a rebuild. So let's do that. Let's pick a direction. Let's move Blake Wheeler's money out. Let's see what happens with Dubois. Let's make room for the youth with Dylan Sandberg, Ville Heinola. Let's move Brendan Dillon, and let's see what we can do with this team for a year, and we'll see where we're at next offseason. But if your plan right now is to take this group without Paul Stastny, Evgeny Svechnikov, and others, and expect to be better because you have Rick Bowness, it's just not going to happen. I promise you, it's not going to happen. And they're going to be very surprised when they finish 10 points out of the playoffs again this year. So, with that said, I'm done talking. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I hope the Jets figure their stuff out and we can move on. Have a great one, everybody. Hope things get better. Bye-bye.